righty. Welcome to day number 2 of the book club. We will kick off here in a couple of minutes. Alrighty. Welcome everybody to day number 2. We are live on Zoom and on YouTube. If you're watching this on Zoom, let me know in the chat where you're tuning in from. If you're watching this on YouTube, also let me know where you are tuning in from. Hopefully on YouTube it's not lagging, but we also have a Zoom link up and running. So please let me know if we lag a little bit here today. Excited for day number 2. Today,
why are you not investing in
simply on chapter number 4? We were going to do 3 chapters today, but today is such an impactful day. We're going to dive straight into chapter 4 in the next couple of minutes as we kick this thing off. So let's spread the word. Feel free to send out the Zoom link, send out the YouTube link. We're going to start here in a couple of minutes. Welcome, everybody. Alrighty, those that are tuning in on YouTube, let me know in the chat where you're tuning in from. Welcome to everybody on Zoom. We're also going to go on Instagram Live here as well. We're going to start here in about 1 minute. Welcome to day 2 of the book club on Outwitting the Devil. Today is going to be, it's going to be a great day. We're going to get this thing started here in about 60 seconds. Alrighty, I see we have people tuning in from all around the world. What's going on YouTube? What's up, Zoom? Alright, let's get this thing started. Alrighty, welcome everybody. I am excited that you're here. Okay, we are officially streaming now on all 3 platforms. Let me make sure you guys can see me. Can you guys see me on Zoom? Where is my camera? Spotlight for everyone. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, welcome to our book club. Excited that you're here. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Instagram, let me real quick. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Instagram, I'm going to put this right here. Can everybody hear me on Instagram real quick? Is the audio good in Instagram? If you're watching this on Zoom, YouTube, excited that you're here. Let me know in the chat one more time where you're tuning in from. Yesterday, we were lagging a lot on YouTube. So we dropped the Zoom link. It was emailed to you. If you're on Instagram, you guys can comment BC to get notified. I'm doing a book club once a month, and you'll be notified on there. So excited that you're here. Today, we're talking about outwitting the devil. Okay, outwitting the devil. chapter 4. Now, we were going to do 3 chapters a day, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to focus today solely on chapter 4. I think this is the most important topic in this book. When we get into the drifting and that whole conversation, we look at, the past day, right? Yesterday, where we talked about the background of Outwitting the Devil, how this book was written, okay, in 1938. It was published in 2011, 2012. And so many people, Serena, I'm going to make you host on Zoom. If you can just let people in if you see them come in and I don't see them, if that's okay. Appreciate you. So yesterday we talked about the meeting, right? Napoleon Hill is looking at the Lincoln Memorial. Napoleon Hill has this, outer body experience, this conversation, right, with the enemy, with the devil, in this book, and he interviews him, okay? And he gets to a point where he's in this Q&A styled interview with the devil or the enemy or whatever you want to call it. And if you haven't read this book, I highly encourage you. And if you have the book, we're going to start today in chapter 4. Okay, if you're on Instagram, you can comment BC to be alerted when we do these book clubs. It's 4 days out of the month. Okay, it's a different book every month. So we're going to go to chapter 4. It's called Drifting with the Devil. If you missed yesterday, majority of yesterday's call is on my YouTube channel, so you can go watch the recording. So we're on page 72. For those that are on here, what's good? Natasha, Cedric, good to see you guys. We got YouTube going, Instagram going, Zoom going, everything's going, okay? So let's go into this conversation, okay? So Napoleon asked the questions and then the enemy or the devil. And I encourage you guys to read or to listen to the audio of this book, but we're going to get into it here. Okay. So Napoleon Hill, also the author of Think and Grow Rich, if you've heard of that book, says, tell me first about your most clever trick, the one you use to ensnare the greatest number of people. And basically the enemy replies here, if you force me to give away the secret, it will mean my loss of millions of people now living, and millions of unborn people who are not yet living. Okay. And then Napoleon says, so His Majesty, the devil, fears a mere humble earthbound creature. Is that right? And he says, it's not right, but it's true. You have no right to rob me of my most necessary tool of trade that he's used for millions of years. Page 73. Okay, we're reading Outwitting the Devil for those that are on here for the first time. The enemy says, my greatest weapon over human being consists of 2 secret principles by which I gain control over their minds. I will speak first of the principle of habit, through which I silently enter the minds of people. By operating through this principle, I establish the habit of drifting. And that's the word you're going to hear me talk about over and over and over again tonight. This concept or this thing that everybody does, and the people that can think for themselves. Okay, that was one of the biggest takeaways from yesterday in chapter 2, is the enemy can't control you if you have the ability to think for yourself, which means you can make your own decisions. And we live in a world where the media is telling us what to do, who to vote for. We live in a world where we're influenced so easily by Twitter and by Instagram and by social media. You can't be controlled, or you can't be told who you are or what you're going to have if you can think for yourself. Okay, I put a 2 in the chat if you're with me here so far. So the enemy says, through this power of drifting, if you are a person who begins to drift on any subject, he is headed straight toward the gates of what you earthbound call hell. Napoleon Hill says, describe all the ways in which you induce people to drift. Okay, this is what I would write down. I would remember this here. The enemy says, I can best define the word drift by saying that people who think for themselves never drift, while those who do a little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. Most of the world, 98 out of 100 people right now in the world are drifting through life. A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind. He would rather let me occupy his mind and do his thinking than go to the trouble of thinking for himself. A drifter is one who accepts whatever life throws in his way without making a protest or putting up a fight. He doesn't know what he wants, and he spends all of his time drifting. A drifter has lots of opinions, but they are not his own. Have you ever heard somebody repeat the same thing over and over and over again? And like, you know, they heard it from an unreliable source, but then they just repeat it because to them, that person is reliable. It's a scary place to be. Okay. For those that are on Instagram, we're in chapter 4, Outwitting the Devil, here in my book club. YouTube was censoring me, so we got a Zoom going on. YouTube, we're trying YouTube. We're everywhere right now. Yeah. And it says a drifter is one who is too lazy mentally to use his own brain. That is the reason I can control people's thinking and plan my own ideas in their mind. He says, my control over the mind of a human being is obtained while the person is young. Okay, this is so key. If you have kids, please listen to this. Sometimes I lay the foundation for my control of a mind before the owner of it is born by manipulating the minds of that person's parents. Sometimes I go further than this and prepare people for my control through what you earthbound call physical heredity. You see, therefore, I have two approaches of those people. Okay, let me give you an example. Have you ever heard somebody say, my parent, my mom or my dad or my cousin or my grandpa has this disease, I'm likely to get this disease? How many of y'all have ever heard that before? Right? Let me know in the chat if you heard it in Zoom or on Instagram or on YouTube. Anyone else glitching? Tell me not again. You guys can hear me on Instagram? Zoom is good. Tell me not again. Can you guys hear me on Instagram? Yeah. How many of y'all have ever heard that before? And what the enemy is saying here is that there's no such thing as that. It's based on, okay, a lot of other factors. And I'm not a doctor, but you can think of what those factors are. Okay. Let's continue here. He says, as I have stated, I help to bring people into your world with weak brains by giving to them before birth as many possible of the weakness of their ancestors. You call this principle physical heredity. After people are born, I make use of what you earthbound call environment. Even doctors sometimes say you are predisposed to a condition. Yeah, facts. I wouldn't go to any of those doctors, I'll tell you that. That's pretty clear. Okay. He says, this is where the principle of habit enters. The mind is nothing more than a sum total of one's habits. One by one, I enter the mind and establish habits which lead finally to my absolute domination of the mind. That's why, like, one habit affects everything else. Okay. If you're really, really undisciplined in like a key area of your life, health, wealth, like, key areas, it's so easy for you to drift. And that's what the enemy does. Okay. Now he says, this is the enemy. He says, that is one of my most clever tricks. I enter the minds of people through thoughts, which they believe to be their own. The most useful to me are fear, superstition, greed, lust, revenge, vanity, and plain laziness. Through one or more, I can enter the mind and any mind at any age, but I get my best results when I'm going to underline this, page 75. When I take charge of the mind while it is young, before its owner has learned how to close any of these 9 doors. Outwitting the devil. It says habits are related. Drift in one direction and soon you will be drifting in all directions. I also use environmental habits to give me a definite grip on my victims. And then Napoleon says, you make it your business to train children in the habit of drifting by inducing them to go through school without aim or purpose. And I think that's why in society, like, I don't know. I think in society right now, society has gotten away from the fact of wanting kids to dream, but instead now telling them what their dream is. I remember when I was when I was 14, 15, one of the counselors came in and said, hey, you have to go pick what job you're going to have. So when you get out of college, you know where you're going to go work. And I already knew that that system was broken from an early age. I was selling shoes and I was already, somewhat of an entrepreneur in high school. But think about that. In schools, they're teaching kids to pick their job when they haven't even gone through school yet. They haven't even finished school. Enemy says, my second best trick in developing the habit of drifting is one that I put into operation with the aid. Okay, now this is where this is going to get interesting here, this conversation. So get ready. This is the operation with the aid of parents and public school teachers and religious instructors. And then the enemy tells Napoleon Hill, says, I warn you not to force me to mention this trick. Do not disclose this trick. If you do so, you will be hated from your coworkers who helped me, or from my coworkers who helped me use this trick. If you publish this confession, okay, this is why this book was written in the 1930s and it wasn't published until years later. The enemy tells Napoleon, if you publish this confession in book form, your book will be barred from the public schools. It will be blacklisted by the most religious leaders. Now, remember, think about this from the 1930s perspective, not from today's perspective. Now you can kind of say what you want, but guess what? In 1930s, you get your hand chopped off in some states, right? So think about that. He says, the enemy says to Napoleon, in fact, no one will like you or your book except those who think. And that's why, like, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Zoom, and, most people's attention spans is like 30 seconds. The average person spends a video on TikTok less than 5 seconds. Most people can't focus. They say they're going to be on the book club and then they don't show up. And they're watching Netflix. Nothing wrong with that. Don't tell me you want to get rich. Don't tell me you want to help mom and dad. Don't tell me you want to become successful and you're not pouring into you. So the enemy basically tells Napoleon, hey, you can't publish this because you're going to be the most hated person in the world. So Napoleon says, so for my own good, you wish to withhold the description of your second best trick? The enemy says this, you'll regret this, Mr. Earthbound, but the joke is on you. By this mistake of yours, you will divert attention from me to yourself. My coworkers, of whom there are millions, will forget about me and hate you for uncovering my methods. Napoleon says, never mind about me. Tell me all about this second best trick of yours. He says, my second best trick is not second at all. It is first. It is first because without it, I can never gain control. It might be the Wi-Fi where I'm at in my house. I don't really usually do calls from here, but hopefully it's not glitching for you guys on Instagram or YouTube. Okay. He says, my second best trick is not at all, it's first. Parents, school teachers, and religious instructors, and many other adults unknowingly serve my purpose by helping me to destroy in children the habit of thinking for themselves. They go about their work in various ways, never suspecting what they are doing to the minds of children. And this is why parents have such a crazy responsibility. This is going to get deep here. So some of y'all that are page 79. Okay, fast forward to page 79. Napoleon says, I understand your devilish nature. Let's get back to the discussion of your methods of inducing people to drift to hell here on earth. From your confession, I see that you take charge of children while their minds are young and pliable. Tell me more about how you use parents and teachers. And then the enemy says, one of my favorite tricks is to coordinate the efforts of parents and religious instructors so they work together in helping me destroy the children's power to think for themselves. Napoleon says, well, how do they do that? He says, I accomplished this through a very clever trick. I cause the parents to teach their children to believe as I cause the parents to teach their children to believe as the parents do in connection with religion, politics, marriage, and other important subjects. The next couple of minutes, you're going to see some stuff that was written in 1938 happening in today's age right now. Hope you stick through this. Okay. He says, in this way, you can see when I gain control of the mind of a person, I can easily perpetuate and control by causing that person to help me fasten it upon the minds of his offspring. And he says, I cause children to become drifters by following the example of their parents. Napoleon says, it seems that you go out of your way to keep people from thinking. Enemy devil says, yes, accurate thought is death to me. I do not mind people thinking as long as they think in terms of fear, discouragement, hopelessness, destructiveness. When they begin to think in constructive terms, write this down. This is so good. We're reading Outwitting the Devil for those that just got on here on Instagram. You guys can comment BC to get notified on my book club. It's 4 days a month. We go book to book. This is my first time doing it in 4 years. So comment BC if you're on IG. When they begin to think in constructive terms of faith, courage, hope, definitive purpose, they immediately become allies of my opposition. See, it doesn't matter what you believe. Like, I think we could all agree, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. When you have a chief aim, which means when you're going towards something, you feel a lot better in life, right? Let me know in the chat. When you're moving toward a goal, when you're moving in a direction of where you desire to go, it's simple. It's like, I want to get from Miami to Europe. I want to go to London. If I want to go from Miami to London, like it's like 9-hour flight. So I got to mentally prepare. I got to pack. I got to get ready. But it's a process to get there, right? It takes like a while. It takes 9 hours traveling. And if there's layovers, it could take like half a day. Half a day of my life is spent getting to this location, getting to this destination. But my chief aim is I need to get to London. But when I get there, how do I feel? Feel better. Now, not when it's cold in London. I don't like London when it's cold, but London is a cool city. United Kingdom, cool place to go. I didn't live there. And if you're broke, definitely don't go to London. But the point is that in the journey, the closer that I'm getting to London, the better I feel. When I see that flight tracker on the TV, on the airline, 8 hours, 6 hours, 1 hour, please fasten your seatbelt. We're about to get to the destination. How do you feel? You feel a lot better because you're about to get to the goal. You're about to get to the destination. And what the enemy is saying in this book in Outwitting the Devil is that's how your life is. When you're about to get there, or when you're in pursuit, or when you're en route, you feel the best in your life. It could be a health goal, right? Relieved is a great word. Exactly, Grace. It could be a health goal. It could be, you guys see my camera moving here on Zoom. It's following my hands. Well, it could be a health goal. It could be a financial goal. But we feel the best as humans when we're progressing towards something. Okay? So let me just repeat those things that he says. People that have faith, courage, hope, definitive purpose, they immediately become allies of my opposition. Now, I was really skeptical about reading this book because I saw this word here. And this book usually turns a lot of people off, especially if they're Christian, and I get it. But you have to understand that whether this interview with Napoleon and the devil happened or if it was just make-believe, the point is that this book recognizes that there's an opposition to the devil, which means that there is a God. And Napoleon was a believer. I believe Napoleon was Christian. And I believe that if there's good, there's bad. If there's evil, there's, good. If there's white, there's black, right? And there's recognition of that. So I think that's something to be side note, okay? Now, Napoleon says, I'm beginning to understand how you gain control of the minds of children through the help of their parents and religious instructors, but I do not see how the school teachers help you. This is where things get really spicy here. The enemy says, school teachers help me gain control of the mind of children, not so much by what they teach the children as because of what they do not teach them. He says I have goosebumps. The entire public school system is so administered that it helps my cause by teaching children almost everything except how to use their own minds and think independently. I mean, I copied in school. I cheated in school. It is what it is. School for me was just memorize, take a test, and then you forget everything, right? You tell me. Was it like that for you as well? You have to memorize things, take a test, then that's it. The enemy says, I live in fear that someday some courageous person will reverse the present system of school teaching and deal my cause a death blow by allowing students. Please write this down. This is one of my favorite parts of the book. This is how the school system would get fixed. This literally right here. I'm gonna read this for y'all. Okay, this is so good. The enemy tells Napoleon Hill, I live in fear that someday some courageous person will reverse the present system of school teaching and deal my cause a death blow by allowing the students to become the instructors, using those who now serve as teachers only as guides to help the children establish ways and means of developing their own minds from within. When that time comes, the school teachers will no longer belong to my staff. And I don't know about y'all, but like you see these like crazy things happening with teachers, not all teachers. I have family members that are teachers, right? But you see this like the scandals, like teachers sleeping with kids. You see the harassment, the abuse, the physical, the sexual abuse happening with teachers. How would you feel if that was your kid in that classroom? And that's why there's a disconnection, and you can see it to this day. There's a disconnection in society right now. A lot of kids, and like, I have a younger brother, he's 12. I picked him up from school today. I gave him some crypto. I took him to lunch, and I actually onboarded him into getting a wallet here today. He's sleeping, but right now. But I always challenge him to think, and he's really smart, thank God, and he can think for himself because he has a teacher that gets a little political. And we had to step in and kind of let him know, like, yo, he's 12, so he's getting older, but he had a teacher that was that was kind of leveraging one political party to get the kids in the class. This is a 7th grade class, to get them to vote for a certain way. If you're a teacher, you shouldn't be influencing that. You shouldn't be telling a 7th grader, hey, you should be a Republican or you should be a Democrat. Like, do your fucking job. Like, you're not getting paid to do that. You're getting paid to teach like math, teach math. And that's the issue right now, is the school system and the teachers have so much control over children. And what Napoleon Hill is saying in his book, Outwitting the Devil, is that you fix the school system by letting kids, kids can't teach themselves math. They need an instructor. But how many teachers, and the teachers that I remember actually did this good job, how many instructors or educators bring children down or bring people down, even college professors? I had college professors that basically told the class, all you're good for is just to work and trade time for money. I went to college, if you didn't know, for a couple months. Okay. So just kind of think about that. Let's continue. This is one of my favorite parts. Remember, this book was written in 1938. It was published in 2011 because the family was scared that they would be crucified. Like literally, they would get killed because of what's in this book. And you got to form your own opinion on it. You think it happened or not. But the information here is very challenging, okay? So now Napoleon is in this interview, okay? He asked another question. He says, I was under the impression that the purpose of all schooling was to help children think. And the enemy or the devil replies, that may be the purpose of schooling, but the system in most schools of the world does not carry out the purpose. I've never thought about one day when I don't have children, one day they're getting homeschooled, like 100%. Or they're going to a really good school. I went to like public school, and then I went to like a charter private school toward the end of my high school, but I never thought about that. My kids would always go to public school. It would be okay. In this day and age, where you have men dressing up as women, and like it's just messed up, right? Some of the issues that children are seeing. Put a 1 in the chat if you're seeing it. So think about this. You're going to put your children in an environment that you don't even know what they're learning. It's kind of crazy. Okay. And the whole purpose of this, tying it back to this book, is if you're a parent and you can't think for yourself, how will you expect, how are your kids going to think for themselves? Because they're a product of their environment, right? The purpose, okay, the enemy says that may be the purpose of schooling, but the system in most schools does not carry that out, okay? This sort of schooling destroys the capacity for independent thought, except in a few rare cases where these children rely so definitely upon their own willpower that they refuse to allow others to do their thinking. Accurate thought is the business of God. Accurate thought, right? What the Bible refers to like thinking clearly, right? Seeking the kingdom of God, right? Let me put my, oh, this thing is literally following me around. Hold up. Whoa. Zoom is lit, literally this camera, hold on, guys, is going crazy. All right, let's, 1 second, everybody. I got this camera, and now we're going to switch cameras. It's like glitching. I got this camera. My dad got it for me, and it literally follows me. I can go like on the other side of the room, and it will literally follow me. All right, cool. Can everybody see me on YouTube? All right, so let's go back into this. Okay. Now this quality sucks, but it's all good. Camera's like not working. Okay, cool. So, amen. Good to see you guys here on Instagram as well. You guys can comment BC. Right now we are reading chapter 4 of Outwitting the Devil. This is inside of my book club, okay? Now he says, that may be the purpose of the school system, but most schools do not carry out this plan. Napoleon says, what relationship, if any, has your opposition with the homes, the churches, and the schools? Let me read that again. He says, what relationship, if any, has your opposition with the homes, churches, and schools? Your reply to this question should be interesting. And the enemy replies here, here is where I make use of some more of my clever tricks. I cause it to appear that everything done by parents, school teachers, religious instructors is being done by my opposition. He's referring to God here. So what he's saying here is that when bad things happen in the world, it's God doing that. How many of y'all have ever heard somebody that doesn't believe in God say, well, if there was a God, school shootings wouldn't happen. If there was a God, this person wouldn't have died, right? We've probably all have heard somebody say that. Maybe we've believed that. Maybe we still believe that. And it's something to challenge. And I understand that. Like, I get that. Like, I thought that at one point as well. But there's deeper roots to that. So let's continue. Okay, let's go through this. And this conversation ain't for the weak. Okay, this is a really challenging chapter here in this book. Okay, but we're adults, so let's have this conversation. Okay, he says, this diverts attention from me while I manipulate the minds of the young. When religious instructors try to teach children the virtues of my opposition, they generally do so by frightening them with my name. And this is why we don't even like to refer to the devil, right? The enemy. Okay, we're reading this book, Outwitting the Devil, and it's on this. And what a lot of religion does, and I'm not going to put names, but what a lot of religion does is it makes you feel bad and it brings people down. And there's obviously consequences and all that stuff. And we're not going to go too deep into that topic. But from what Napoleon is saying in this book, okay, is that people and instructors, teachers and people and religious instructors and religions, they say, hey, if you do this, you're going straight to the H word, right? We've probably all have heard that. Let's continue. And then he says, I kindle the flame of fear into proportions which destroy the children's power to think accurately. In the public schools, the teachers further may cause my cause by keeping the children so busy cramming non-essential information into their minds that they have no opportunity to think accurately or to analyze correctly the things their instructors teach them, right? We already explained that. Maria just said it on Zoom. I'm not going to repeat it. But yeah, for sure. I've seen it. I walked into a certain type of church. I'm not going to go too deep into this. And the first thing that they did is they handed out a paper telling people to put their banking information on this piece of paper. And I believe that there is a religion and then there's a relationship with God, right? Religion, I don't want religion. Religion doesn't work. Religion is man-made. Religion is rules. Religion is you do this and you get punished. I don't think that's the God that created the heavens and the earth, in my opinion. Okay. And I think God is a God of second chances. I think I've gotten one so many times. And we could probably all agree and talk about, we could probably make a circle with a campfire and some marshmallows and talk about all the second chances that we shouldn't even be here, but we're here, right? Napoleon says, do you claim for your cause all those who are bound by the habit of drifting? The enemy says, no, drifting is only one of my tricks. Please listen to this. I take over the power of independent thought before a drifter becomes my permanent property. I must lead him on an ensnare him with another trick. I will tell you about this other trick after I finish describing my methods of converting people into drifters. So ask yourself this question right now. Have I been drifting in my life? It's such a hard reality for some of us to realize that we're drifting right now in maybe one area, maybe in our whole lives. And if you are, let's talk about how to get out of it. Because we just have to follow some of these rules. Okay, follow these principles. Napoleon says, do you mean that you have a method by which you can cause people to drift so far away from self-determination that they can never save themselves? Enemy says, yes, a definite method, and it never fails. Page 84 for you guys are following along here in the book. Yeah. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Zoom. We're live on Instagram. Good to see everybody. Glad you guys showed up. If you're on Instagram, comment BC to get notified of when I'm doing these book clubs. The next book club I do, it's going to be only in one place. So right now it's kind of unorganized, but who cares? Whatever. Okay, let's actually fast forward here. I want to get into some stuff here. Page 86. Napoleon asks the enemy, says, is man the only creature who drifts? Enemy says, yes, all other creatures move in response to definite laws of nature. So a dog can't drift. A cat can't think for themselves. An iguana can't make a decision, right? All of the animals, and this is so powerful and why you see God every day if you just go outside and go into nature, all of animals move according to habit, or not habit, according to like intuition, okay? Look at this. Everything outside the minds of men is controlled by God, by laws so definite that drifting is impossible. I control the minds of men solely because of their habit of drifting, which is only another way of saying that I control the minds of men because they neglect or they refuse to control and use their own minds. Everything that we talked about in day one yesterday of this book club, we're going to be live here tonight, tomorrow, and one more day, 4 total days. Everything comes back to the cause. And for those that are on Instagram, we're reading Outwitting the Devil, chapter 4. Everything comes back to the cause is if a person can't think for themselves, they're in trouble. If a person allows mom or dad or the media or TikTok to tell them what to do in their life and everybody else is making decisions, you're in some trouble. But what Napoleon Hill is saying here, okay, Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich. He wrote Laws of Success. Napoleon Hill mentored Earl Nightingale, okay, who mentored Earl Shoaff. Eventually that leads to Jim Rohn. Like that whole lineage is crazy. Where can I get a genuine copy of this book? Well, this is on like Amazon. There's very few of these. Remember, this book was written in 1938. Okay. It was published in 2011 because of some of the things that are put in this book. Yeah, correct. Earl Nightingale mentored Bob Proctor. Earl Nightingale also mentored somebody called Earl Schoaf. That led to Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn leads to Tony Robbins. So Napoleon Hill, remember the story, we talked about it yesterday. Napoleon Hill interviewed 50 of the wealthiest people in the 1930s. He became best friends with Andrew Carnegie, who started the steel industry. Andrew Carnegie, his wealth today is over $300 billion. There's no steel industry in America if there's not Andrew Carnegie. Napoleon Hill meets him. He quits his job. He goes on a 20-year journey. He writes Think and Grow Rich in like 1934 or 1936, I think. 1936, 1937. The Great Depression is ending. Then he gets this encounter with the enemy, the devil, this interview, whatever, whether it happened or not. Then this book is written. Okay. Just a quick backstory on the book. Okay. So then page 87, my copy has different pages than you. That's not good. Well, hopefully it's all good. Napoleon says, no doubt you would. That would save you from being exposed. But let us come back to Earth. Tell me now what drifting is doing to us as a nation here in the United States. Now, please remember, this was written in the context in the 1930s. Who was, this is so important, guys. Who was president in 1938? Okay. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Okay. Remember, this is coming right out of the world's, this is a time that hopefully we never have. World War I just ended. The Great Depression just ended. America is like rebuilding. You know, they just had a draft. So if you were like even I think 17 or 18, you went to war, right? In World War I. Okay. The war just ended. Pay attention to this question here. Napoleon Hill asked the enemy, tell me what's happening in the United States. And the enemy says, frankly, I may as well tell you that I hate the United States as only the devil can hate. He says, that's interesting. Why? He says, the cause was born on July 4th, 1776, when 56 men signed a document which destroyed my chances of controlling the nation. You know that document as the Declaration of Independence. Had it not been for the influence of that damnable document, I would now have a dictator running the country. Crazy. So the enemy's saying in this book that he hates America. He hates the United States. He hates that July 4th happened because July 4th, 1776, America became a country. It put together these principles. It created a constitution, right? Which America was founded on. And if you don't live in America, just go Google the Declaration of Independence. And guess what? Aren't we seeing? We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay, this part is so good. If you're on Instagram, comment BC, get into the book club. We're doing this live on Zoom, YouTube, we're everywhere right now. Napoleon Hill says, am I to understand from what you are saying that nations controlled by self-appointed dictators belong in your camp? So what Napoleon just asked the enemy in this book is he's saying, the dictators, you control them, you put them in those positions. He says, there are no self-appointed dictators. I appoint them all. Moreover, I manipulate them and direct them in their work. Nations run by my dictators know what they want and they take it by force. Look at what I have done through Mussolini in Italy. Look at what I am doing through Hitler in Germany. Okay, remember, this is when the Holocaust was going on. Look at what I am doing through Stalin in Russia. My dictators run those nations for me because the people have subdued through the habit of drifting. My dictators do know drifting. That is why they rule for me the millions of people under their control. Such a powerful book. We're in chapter 4, page 88. My book club is on Zoom right now and on YouTube and on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, just say what's up. Yeah. Now, Napoleon Hill is in this conversation. He's talking, he has this experience where he's interviewing the devil, right? Whether you believe that or not. Here you go. He says, what would happen if Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler turned traitors and disavowed you and your rule? And the enemy replies, that will not happen because I have them too well bribed. I am paying each of them with the sop of his own vanity by making him believe he is acting on his own account. That is another trick of mine. Napoleon says, let us come back to the United States. To learn something of what you're doing to convert people to the habit of drifting, okay? He says, right now, I am paving the way for a dictatorship by sowing the seeds of fear and uncertainty in the minds of people. Napoleon says, through whom are you carrying on your work? Guys, please pay attention here. We have an election in 3 weeks. He says, mainly through the president. Remember, this was written in 1938. The president was Franklin D. Roosevelt. Okay. Mainly through the president, I am destroying his influence with the people by causing him to drift on the question of a working agreement between employers and their employees. If you don't know the backstory, the Great Depression, before the Great Depression in America, 95% of people owned a business. Okay. 5% of people were employees. The Great Depression happens and everything tanks. Stock market, financial market, businesses close, everybody goes to war. You literally had professional baseball players like Joe DiMaggio who were playing for the New York Yankees go kill people in World War I and come right back into society and come right back into playing baseball. Okay. And when World War I ended and the Great Depression ended, guess what takes place? A flip of those numbers that I just said. 95% of people become employees. 5% of people become business owners. Why is that? Why did that happen? Somebody in the chat tell me on Zoom or on YouTube or on Instagram. Why does that happen? It happens because of what? Let me see if you guys are paying attention. Okay. For those that just got on Instagram, we're reading this book, chapter 4. Stick around if you want. Why did that happen, Benny? Why did that happen, Maria? Why did that happen, Chasen, Serena, Cedric, Kristen? How come it switched? Benny says the ability to think. Well, yeah, but it switched because of, Benny says it, fear and control. People were so scared to continue their business that they just said, hey, you know what? Just give me any job. Hey, you know what? Venice hit this on the head. Their ability to think was like, you know what? Let me just get a safe job. Let me just get a safe job. Do you see that happening almost 100 years later? Do you know the Great Depression happened less than 100 years ago? It happened in 1930s. Okay. That's less than 100 years ago. Honestly, that's not even that far or long ago. You even look at like Martin Luther King and like racism and all of the walks, like that wasn't that long ago. 70 years ago, 80 years ago, like a lot has happened. And when you read this book, it opens some doors. Okay, now let's go back into this. Okay, I encourage everybody to just go listen to the audio on YouTube. You don't have to believe anything I'm saying. Go listen to this for yourself. If you have the ability to think for yourself and make decisions, and I know it sounds crazy. If you've never read like a personal development book, it sounds stupid. Why would I do that? If you don't have any goals in your life, you're not going to do this anyway. So you might as well get off of here. But if you're somebody that says, I don't want to be where I'm at, I have a goal, I want to do better, I want to earn more income, I want to help more people, then it starts with the foundation. Can you make your own damn decisions? Can you not rely on the government or somebody else to take care of you? Men or women. Okay, let's get back to it. We're almost done here. Saludos desde Guatemala. ¿Cómo estás? Okay, so let's get back to this. So he says, what you say lead me to the conclusion that drifting, page 89, is a weakness which inevitably ends in failure. whether among individuals or nations. Is that your claim? And the enemy says, drifting is the most common cause of failure in every walk of life. I can control anyone whom I can induce to form the habit of drifting on any subject. That's what I was talking about. It could be health, it could be your bank account, whatever. The reason for this is twofold. First, the drifter is just so much putty in my hands to be molded into whatever pattern I choose, because drifting destroys the power of individual initiative. And yesterday we talked about how the enemy uses cigarettes and alcohol to control people. And cigarettes is actually worse than alcohol. Both are bad for you. But people that are on 2 packs of cigarettes a day, the enemy owns them. It says the enemy owns the 2-pack of cigarettes per day, people. So if you're smoking cigarettes, highly recommend getting off that, okay? And then Napoleon asks one of my favorite questions in this book. He says, is that why a few people are wealthy while the majority of people are poor? The enemy answers, please listen, everybody. That is exactly the reason. Poverty, like physical illness, is a contagious disease. Poverty, like physical illness, is a contagious disease. You ever see those movies and then it's like, maybe like a bad neighborhood, and then somebody like gets out of the neighborhood and they become successful, and then they go back to their neighborhood. Maybe it's happened to you. And then people like, they hate you, they resent you, they don't want to do business with you because you didn't put them on or you didn't try to help them. That's what Napoleon Hill is talking about in this book in Outwitting the Devil. Poverty is like a physical illness, a contagious disease. The enemy says you find it always among the drifters, never among those who know what they want and that are determined to just get that. It may mean something to you when I call your attention to the fact that non-drifters, remember, a non-drifter is somebody that can think for themselves, non-drifters whom I do not control, and those who possess most of the wealth of the world happen to be the same people. And then Napoleon Hill asks, I have always understood that money was the root of all evil. Put a 1 in the chat if you've heard that. Come on. We're almost done here. We're about to wrap up. Who's heard money is the root of all evil? We've all heard it, right? The enemy says, men who know how to get the material things of life generally know how to keep out the hands of the devil as well. The ability to acquire things is contagious. Drifters acquire nothing except that which no one else wants. Wow. I've read this book like 9 times. I don't remember reading this. Drifters acquire nothing except that which no one else wants. You don't build your business, there's consequences. You don't think for yourself, there's consequences. You don't have a goal. You don't put in the work. You don't do the presentations. You don't show up. You don't use risk management. You don't do what you're supposed to do in your job or your business or your whatever you're doing. You will get what no one else wants. That's crazy. He says if more people, okay, we're about to finish here. If more people had definite aims and stronger desires for material and spiritual riches, I would have fewer victims. Oh my good Lord. I did not remember reading this. I'm having a breakthrough right now. Dang. Drifters acquire nothing except that which no one else wants. This is definitely an Instagram caption, if more people, listen to this, if more people had definite aims and stronger desires for material and spiritual riches, the good news is you can drive a Ferrari and not go to hell and get into heaven. People have been sold this dream that if you are rich, you're going to hell. If you have a lot of money, you are a bad person. If you have a lot of money, you're a scammer. Like, sure, there's a lot of scammers, but there's also good people, right? How many of y'all know some good people that do good things with money? And this is like I don't like really talking about these stories, but like I was at Publix. It's like a place in Florida, right? You get like subs. I was getting a Publix sub the other day, and I could tell the kid was like 17, 18. He wasn't having a good day. And I gave him like $5, $10. And obviously I paid for my food at the counter, but I gave him $5, $10, whatever the cash I had in my pocket. And it changed his day. The second he went from frown to smile in a second. And it's like, whatever you can do from a giving perspective, like you can't give what you don't have. So you have to get so then you can give. And it's okay. Okay. It's okay to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit selfish in this season. I don't think it's bad. Now, on the same thing, I think the enemy, I'm about to offend half of the people here. I think the enemy tells people this lie of, hey, you need to just go work on yourself. You need to ignore everything and go work on yourself. Like, what does that even freaking mean? Have you ever heard somebody say, well, I'm working on myself? Shit. The second you stop, your life goes backwards. Working on yourself is a lifelong journey. It doesn't stop, ladies and gentlemen. You should always be in a construction mode of your own life. You should always have that hard hat on saying, you know what? I'm going to continue to grow. I'm going to show up to a book club at 11 p.m. at night if you're on the East Coast. I've made this mistake. I'm going to stop doing everything and focus on myself. Like, what does that mean? I guarantee you go backwards in your life. You're going through something, build your business. You're struggling through something, continue to show up to the gym. Everybody's dealing with something. So let's wrap this thing up here. Okay. We're going to fast forward page 95, last page, and we're going to wrap out of this book club. This is day 2. Today, we were going to go through 3 chapters, but chapter 4 was so good. We're just focusing on chapter 4. I encourage you to go listen to this. We'll be back live tomorrow for chapters 5, 6, and 7. I have a special guest for you tomorrow. Tomorrow night, one of my best friends coming on here, extremely successful guy. This book changed his life as well. So, all right, last couple things, last 3 questions, and we're done here. Page 95. Napoleon says, is the non-drifter born with some mental, physical, or spiritual advantage to the drifter? The enemy says no. The major difference between the drifter and the non-drifter is something equally available to both. It is simply the prerogative right of each to use his own mind and think for himself. Everything we've talked about, you might not remember any of it. That's why you want to read this again, listen to it yourself. But everything that we've covered in this book for the past 57 minutes, and I'm proud of you for being here 57 minutes later. If you're watching this on YouTube, and you're watching the replay right now, shout out to you. Everything comes back down. Can you make decisions for yourself, or do you need mentors and you need to seek counsel for certain things? Of course. But can you make a decision to think for yourself, to realize that you need to ask for help? How many of us have ever been told if you ask for help, it's a sign of weakness? Let me know in the chat if you've ever been told that. If you ask somebody for help, you're weak. You don't come from a place of strength if you're asking for help. I've been told that. As a man, I've been told that. Sometimes a lot of men think that, to be honest with you. Well, if you ask somebody for help, you're weak. I suck at golf. I'm asking for help. I'm paying somebody for help. I don't know how to build this business. I don't know how to trade. I'm asking for help. I'm paying for help because I'm humble enough to realize that if I want to go to my goal and somebody's close to it or at where I desire to go, isn't it smart to plant myself in an environment where I ask for help? But we live in such a world where it's like, you got to be really tough. And you do need to have that. You do need to have rhino skin. But if you're a man or a woman who can think for themselves and you're not drifting through life, you realized already, I got to seek counsel. It's not a sign of weakness, but it's a sign of strength. Okay. So that's what the enemy says. It is simply the prerogative right of each to use his own mind and think for himself. Napoleon says, what brief message would you send to the typical drifter if you wished to cure him of this evil habit? So powerful. Okay. We're wrapping up here chapter for Outwitting the Devil. He says, I would admonish him to wake up and give. Napoleon says, give what? Some form of service useful to as many people as possible. How many of y'all have a bad day? You go serve at church. You go donate money. You go help somebody else. You go give the bartender or the waiter or waitress just an extra couple of dollars, right? On top, you give a 25% tip when you usually tip 15 or 20 or whatever. You give a little bit more. How good do you feel? What the enemy is saying right here in this book is that the second that you start to serve and you find ways to serve, you get farther away from his control over your life. You get farther away from drifting. And that's the whole concept of this chapter. It's like, are you drifting or are you not drifting in your life? Majority of people are drifting. 98 out of 100 people the enemy controls. We can see it. Look at this election. Come on. Like, the people who can't think for themselves, not going to go there tonight. Okay. Not tonight, maybe tomorrow. Okay. So Napoleon Hill says last part of this book, guys, last chapter here for tonight. So the non-drifter is supposed to give, is he? He says, yes, if he expects to get. We've all been told that before. And he must give before he gets. What a crazy concept. You have to give before you get. And then when you get, you have to give to keep it. What a crazy concept here. And Napoleon says, some people doubt that you exist. And the enemy says, I wouldn't worry about that if I were you. Those who are ready to be converted from the habit of drifting will recognize the authenticity of this interview by its soundness of the counsel. Now, remember, I'm going to say it one last time. Book was written in 1938, published about 10 years ago. Why? Because of the things inside of this book. You see how many controversies that are in here? Okay, there's controversies from religion. There's controversies from school, right? He goes deeper into the school system in this book, but he says the way that you fix the education system is you let the kids, the children become the instructors, and the instructors become the students. Isn't that a crazy concept? Now, he's not saying like let the kids literally teach math, but let the kids guide the conversation. Okay. Oh, I want to be an astronaut. Okay, let's prepare this kid to be an astronaut. Let's not tell this kid, hey, you know what? You should be an accountant, Johnny, because you'll make 80K a year and you'll take one vacation a year. Craziness. He says, Napoleon says, why do you not try to stop me from publishing this confession? And the enemy replies, because that would be the surest of all ways to guarantee you will publish it. I have a better plan than trying to suppress publication of my confession. I will urge you to go ahead with the publication, then sit back and watch you suffer when some of my faithful drifters begin to make things hot for you. I will not need to deny your story. My followers will do that for me. See if they don't. So what he's saying here is he's in this interview, he's in this conversation as we wrap this up. We've been here for an hour. Proud of you guys for going through this whole chapter 4 today, day 2 of our book club. Comment BC if you're on Instagram to get notified on all my book club stuff. But he asked the enemy, well, aren't you afraid that I'm going to publish this? And the enemy says, no. Enemy says, I control enough people that people are not going to believe it anyways. And one word comes to mind when he said that. It's that sometimes the deception of something will be so believable that people are literally tricked into believing that something is real or fake. The deception, Napoleon asked the enemy questions about the country, like how do you fix the country? And the enemy says he hates the United States. Why? Because the United States was founded on freedom in July 4th, 1774, whatever, 1776. A piece of paper that creates, a constitution. And I don't know about y'all, but I can see in America, like the Constitution is being tested every single day. Like America is getting farther away from where it was in 1776 than what it is today. Okay, can you all agree with that? I don't care who, and here's the good news, is it doesn't matter if you're voting for Trump or for Kamala, they're not coming to save you. That's the best part about being a person that can think for themselves. Either way, you have to do certain things. Either way, you have to plant seeds and understand that a harvest will show up later. Either way, they're not going to build your business. Either way, they're not going to put money in your crypto account. Either way, you have to do certain things. You have to sell the product, or you have to share the opportunity, or you have to do some things. And the great news, and I love reading this book over and over and over again, and one of my favorite books, and this is the first book club that we're doing. One of the biggest realizations you can have is that I'm going to win regardless. I'm going to become successful regardless. I'm going to make X amount of money regardless. You got to be the president of your own life, John says. Yeah, agreed. And some habits you got to fire. Some habits you got to continue to press on. Okay. I hope you guys have gotten some value from the book club. If you're on Instagram, comment BC. We'll be back here tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to go through chapters 5 through 7. I'm going to bring in a special guest. Tomorrow, we're going to really focus, though, on hypnotic rhythm, chapter 6, and chapter 7, the seeds of fear. Okay. We're going to focus on those 2 chapters. I'm going to have a guest for y'all. If you comment BC, the Zoom link will be emailed to you 30 minutes before the call tomorrow. If you're on Zoom, appreciate you. If you're on YouTube, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing. It means everything to me. Hit that subscribe button and hit the like button as well. All right, y'all. I'll see you guys very soon. God bless. See you guys tomorrow for night number 3.